Hi, it's Mary from Growing Puppies, and I'm here today to answer some of the questions that I've been getting from my customers about food and how to feed their puppies. So I have written out the list of questions here to make sure that I don't forget to answer some of these questions in this video, but it's going to be kept very basic, and there's a lot more that could be said on this topic. I'm going to just try to keep to the point. So first of all, what kind of food should I buy? That's the first question. I do send home a bag of food with your puppy, and that is the kibble that your puppy is eating right before they go home. So we are feeding the puppies we will be feeding the puppies right before they go home. The Taste of the Wild is called the Prairie recipe, puppy recipe. It's a grain-free recipe, and it is roasted bison and venison. And that's an unusual kind of protein that you don't usually get in a puppy food. This is a pretty high quality food, and it does have probiotics and good stuff in it. But in general, kibble is not the absolute best food you can feed your dog. But as far as kibble goes, we do feed a good quality one. And I do recommend that you change out the proteins that you're giving your dog, your puppy, over the course of its first year. A lot of people will go home with the food that I started feeding their dog, and they will feed that for the whole first year, nothing else but the same thing. And that's not ideal, because then they can develop allergies to chicken, because most puppy recipes are chicken or whatever that first food was that they went home with. That's sometimes what they've done. And of course, now I understand, I've taken a class from a nutritionist, and I understand the importance of changing the food that you're eating so that you don't always have the same thing for your puppy. So this one is unusual in that it is the bison and venison, and most puppy foods are chicken, so don't get caught in a rut of just feeding chicken. Look around for other varieties. And one person asked if they should buy the great big bag like what I have. Well, I'm feeding a lot of puppies, and so I do buy the great big bag, but for you, I recommend you buy a small bag. And the reason is that once you open that bag, the air is getting in there, and if you're not consuming that bag in a relatively short period of time, that food will go rancid. And so we go through our food. I'm replacing this bag every week. And that's because the moms will sometimes, what I'll do is I'll feed the puppies whatever they don't eat. I'll just let the moms eat, just so that we're not wasting it. And I like to give the puppies fresh all the time. So we do go through the food very quickly, even when we're buying the large bags. But with your little puppy, your puppy won't go through as quickly. So it's better to get fresh, and to every time you are buying a new bag, you can look and see if there's a different kind of protein you can get. I'm not sure how many different varieties they have of the puppy recipe and Taste of the Wild, but there are other good brands out there, and I'll try to list some of them so that you can try other brands of food as well. The important thing is that they are eating a puppy diet. These are formulated with the needs of a puppy in mind, with extra calcium and stuff. But if you want to improve their diet, there's also dehydrated food, which is going to be better than all kibble. These high heat cooked puppy foods that are like these crunchy nugget things, that's all called kibble, and it's not as nutritious because of the way they make it. They generally are not human grade ingredients for the most part, and it's really pretty much everything that's left over when anything else good has been taken out for human use. Everything else that we can't use, that is then put into dog food. So it's really kind of the lowest of the low for the most part, though you can get a few brands that are better. Now the dehydrated food is cooked at a low temperature, which retains the vitamins and nutrients, which is why I really do recommend dehydrated food, because it's as convenient as kibble, but it's healthier for them. And this one is a human grade food, as you'll see by the package. Small batch is one that I recommend that you have. If you buy kibble for your puppy, buy a small bag of small batch as well, so that if your puppy doesn't want to eat for some reason, the small batch is much more palatable and much tastier for your puppy, and your puppy typically will eat small batch even if it won't eat the kibble. So they're already eating kibble before they leave here, but sometimes when they're transitioning to a new home, a puppy won't want to eat, and so I say have some small batch on hand so that you have something that's more attractive to your puppy. Now, let's see here. I'm going to make sure I answer all the questions. Now, what do our puppies eat? Our puppies do start on a home-cooked diet, which I use ingredients that will naturally expel worms and parasites. And so those are things like sweet potatoes, apples, arugula, carrots. You know, these are things. I have a puppy recipe, so to speak, which is properly balanced with the right amount of protein to vegetable to fruit to carbohydrate, as well as organ meat and fat and all that. So I took a course with a nutritionist because obviously I don't want my dogs or puppies to have any deficits. So if you're going to feed your dog yourself, make up your own food, you can't just take any recipe you find. You really have to make sure you learn from somebody who is trained in that area. And most veterinarians are not trained in dog canine nutrition, or they're not certified nutritionists. So it's better to take it from a nutritionist. So when you get home, what I recommend you do is that if you are feeding kibble or whatever you're feeding, to give it to your puppy by hand, because that feeding of your dog will establish you as the leader. And even with my puppies here, when I'm bringing them their food for the first time, I'll have their little puppy mush, which is a mixture of, you know, the ground up cooked food, and I'll put some goat's milk in it to make it extra slushy, like a puppy milkshake or something, because you want it to be very easy for them to eat at first because they've only been nursing before that. Well, when I bring my puppies their food, I say puppy, puppy, puppy when I put it in their pen, and then that kind of alerts them that I'm calling them, and that teaches them their first coming to call. They start to associate people with food, and they will learn to come, and they start to perk up just when I come in the room, because again, they're associating me and other people with giving them food. And that's what you do want to establish with your own puppy, that you are the source of its food. That is what will build you as its leader. And so the first thing I do with new puppies is I will get them used to their pen, and I also use food to do that, where if I'm not hand feeding them, I'll put some food in some sort of Kong or toy or something that they can eat in their pen to, again, build positive associations with the crate or pen. So if I leave the room, I might give them something when I leave the room, and I come back, I'll take it away. But again, we're trying to build a positive associations with pen and crate using foods and treats. And so I also will have high value treats like dried fish or different things that I don't give my dogs rawhide, by the way, or anything that is non-digestible. I give them single ingredient digestible treats, and I can tell you more about that in another time. But so the next question is, how much food do you feed your puppies? Okay, so all the puppies that go home, they're all going to be a little bit different, different weights. So there's no like one answer. Like, I can't tell you specifically how much your puppy will be eating, because they'll be going through growth spurts at different times. But in general, you can look up your puppy's weight on the internet and find out how much food they recommend, and that's how much kibble they should eat, or how much cooked food they should eat, or if you look on the box, it'll give you a recommended amount, and usually that amount is on the high side. But so don't freak out if your puppy isn't eating the full amount that's recommended on the box, because they sometimes don't. If your puppy is happy and doing well and growing, if it's gaining weight, then that's what I look for. I weigh my puppies every week here, and I make sure that the growth chart is always in an incline, and then I know that they're eating and growing well. So okay. So the other thing I recommend is that if you're feeding kibble, you should wet your food, because otherwise your puppy is going to get dehydrated by their kibble. So generally I have the amount of food that is approximate what they might eat. I put it in the refrigerator. I cover it in water and I let it sit there. And then when it's mealtime, I'll take out that hydrated kibble and I'll use that to hand feed or throw in a little puppy Kong or whatever. The interesting thing is that puppies will eat better if they're working for their food. That's the truth of dogs too. So those puzzle feeders and snuffle mats and puppy Kongs and topple toys, all those different kinds of toys that also treat a puppy at the same time, those things will help encourage your puppy to eat. And that's a great thing to put to have on hand so that you can put it in their crate or their pen when you're walking out of the room, and then you come back a couple minutes later and you can take it away again. So again, just to engage them and distract them with something that's exciting when you're about to leave, so they don't associate your leaving with negative things. They're not, when you leave the room, they aren't watching you and sitting there and going, oh my gosh, when's my meal coming back? You give them something, and I hate to be that, but when is my meal coming back? I mean, they're basically looking at you as their survival, and when you leave the room, that's the way they're kind of probably feeling by nature, is that their protector is left. So you give them that, and then they're like all excited about that. They don't notice that you've left, or if they do, they also see you when you come back, and they start to learn that you do return and you won't. And so building up the amount of time you leave is helpful when you are doing that with positive food associations. So again, if your puppy doesn't want to eat for a few days, you can wet the food. Hand feeding helps. Small batch will help make the food more palatable. I always have small batch dehydrated food on hand for little puppies, because if they don't want to eat their kibble, that smells better, it tastes better. My dogs get real excited when I take out the small batch. At least that's before I started cooking for them. Now if they see me getting a bowl and going to the fridge, they all start running at me because they know I'm getting the good food out of the fridge, because that home cooked food is super, super exciting for them. And I will note that when I started cooking for my dogs, suddenly they were just at my beck and call. I could call them, they'd come immediately, because suddenly they saw me as this really high value food source. I did make the mistake, like so many of other people do, of just putting the kibble down on the floor in the morning and picking it up whenever, maybe midway through the day, or maybe putting some down at dinner time. But it was just, I just put it down there and leave, and the dogs would sort of walk by, sniff at it. Maybe they might eat a little bit here, a little bit there, sort of like nibbling on it all day. They weren't really they weren't so excited about their kibble, but they also weren't really seeing it as a big high value thing because it was down so much. But now they have very definite food times, and I'm bringing them high value food, and it's become, it's just really, they're just so much more excited about things, and very much very eager to know what I have to say, or if I call them or anything else. They are on their best behavior, because they're just so excited about their food, and they see it as coming from me. That's just the way it is. So let's see, in general, yeah, just to remind you, always, if you're buying kibble dog, buy puppy food, because that's a formulation for your puppies. I do recommend that you change your food out, different varieties, again, so that they have various ingredients. One brand of food fed all their life is going to be very bad for them, because they're not going to be getting variety. So I do think it's a good idea. If you're doing kibble, you have to slowly transition from one food to the next. If you are going from kibble to dehydrated food, then you don't need to do the transition so much. I mean, it's less of a deal. If you're going from dehydrated food to cooked food, you can just give them cooked food. The cooked food is so easy to digest, and they're I mean, their stomachs just tolerate it so much easier than drier foods, that you don't really have to do the transition that you might with a kibble. But if you're going from real food to kibble, you might want to introduce it a little more slowly, so they get a little more used to it, because it is harder for them to digest. As far as where to learn to cook for your puppies, I do not teach that, because I don't feel that I should be teaching people cooking when I am not certified. I think it's important that we not just take everybody's opinion off the internet and think that that's going to be nutrition for your dog. So I do have a certified canine nutritionist that I can recommend, who has been very knowledgeable and has taught a lot of people about dog nutrition and a lot of other information in her course about other dog health regarding vaccinations and flea and tick medications and just dog health in general. You'll get so much from her course if you decide to take it, and I'll be happy to refer anybody who is interested in that, but I do not make that as a requirement because I understand that we have to go in baby steps sometimes, and just getting a puppy, there's so much to get used to and to focus on that food, you can evolve in your food journey. But I will finish with this one sentence that somebody said, throwing toppers on top of dry food is like adding a piece of lettuce to a McDonald's burger. The lettuce, although it may have more nutrition than the burger, doesn't change the fact that the burger is pretty much junk food. So that's the same with kibble. Kibble is kind of like junk food for your dog. And if you want optimum health for your dog throughout the course of its whole life, it really is good if you can try to give it the best quality food you can give it, because that will make a difference, I believe, in the long-term health. So whatever extra money that I pay by feeding my dogs a better quality food, I just feel like that's going to give them a longer life, and they're not going to have health issues. I'm going to save money and the veterinary bill. So I just do the best I can according to the knowledge that I have, and I do encourage my customers to do the same, and I hope that I can be a resource to help you find what is the best path for yourself. So anyway, good luck to you. I'm happy to answer any more questions you may have. Bye-bye.